Hello everyone and welcome to episode 15 of our Tabletop Assault podcasts. As well, sorry for the short notice and advertising the podcast, guys. We're trying our best to get these up as quickly as we possibly can. So for everyone who is joining us live, thank you very much. And for everyone who is watching this on the replay, again, thank you very much. So who are we joined with on today's podcast? So we do have Ross, Rob, and we're joined again by one of our special guests, Pix. Say hello everybody.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello. Hello. Yep.
Excellent. And how are we all doing this this fine Thursday evening?
Absolutely marvellous.
Doing grand?
Yeah, getting there. Slowly. Getting there.
Okay, mixed bag of emotions. Loving it, guys. Loving the energy. All right, cool. So, a couple of household rules as always, guys, for the podcast. Any comments, put them in the comments section, the live chat. We'll do our best, obviously, to respond to them throughout the podcast. Keep it PC. We are a family-friendly channel here. If you're watching in the replay, any of the things you want to ask, your discussion points today, put them in the comment section down below. And obviously, we will get back to them as soon as we possibly can. But what are we going to be discussing on episode 15 of the podcast today? Well, it's quite an easy one, but one in my opinion that's going to have some good nostalgia and also some good input as to what makes the best tabletop. Now, when I say what makes the best tabletop, we're talking about things like, is it the terrain? Is it the armies? Hey, is it like we do in the channel? Is it the backing boards? There's a whole different elements to what you prefer on the tabletop. And I'll come to some memories when it comes to my sort of input on it. And the reason we're also doing this discussion is, as Rob was probably going to mention later on, we've got new terrain incoming to the channel, which is always good. We want to try and keep the flavours going. Rob's done an incredible job in getting those sourced. So, I'm going to open up with the first question, and this does not need the world's largest explanation. I'm going to point at you, Ross, straight away. Yep. But Ross, when you're playing the games today, not when we were a lot younger and playing them and sort of in the shops or with our friends, but on a sort of professional level when you're playing the games, what's more important to you? What element of that tabletop that stands out to you that you want to get right? What makes it a good tabletop for you?
Honestly, when it comes to the aspect of like painted and the atmosphere, see if one element is off, it kind of throws it all off. And that could be just the privilege of the fact that we've got terrain painted, armies painted, we've even got the backing boards. I could survive without the backing boards, but see if like I was to play on terrain, terrain that was not painted or non-existent terrain, it would just feel very defeated. Same with grey armies. I suppose I could play with grey armies, so that kind of answers its terrain. But I don't think I could play with just, in old days with eggshell things. You'd use them as a bunker or something. So I'd say terrain partly is the most important, whether it's painted or not. Yeah, I just think if you're going to go with painted in terms of army and terrain, either go big and you'll get so much more enjoyment from the whole atmosphere if you have it all, because the single part that stands out, it will just affect the whole atmosphere. From playing with guests, when you've got everything so atmospherically done with painted armies, terrain, everything, they really enjoy it so much more. And I know it's been a couple of years for us since we've played without it, but with playing with guests, they really tell you how much they love it when they see a big board of it.
I know it's been a couple of years.
Fair enough, that makes perfect sense. I'll come back to the eggshells and cartons very, very shortly because I just love referencing back to the old days when you didn't have much money and you had to play on your parents' floor with models. But anyway, we'll come to that. Louise, I want to go over to you next. Again, it could be terrain is what makes it for you, but again, just want to throw it out there. What about you when you're on the tabletop? What do you like the most to make your tabletop?
Well, see, this is the thing. I'm kind of... I've been privileged enough to grow up spoiled in the hobby, because I've only recently got into gaming, and even when I wasn't into gaming and everything was primarily painting, because I was in a household with multiple staff members of G-Dub, it was just terrain a go-go, everything was fully painted. I was in the shops 6-7 days a week, so I had all of that at my disposal. Now at home though, with Rob here and him having the emphasis on the gaming as well and getting me into it, I think actually having fully painted terrain and a variety of terrain, and scatter terrain as well, not just the big bits, actually makes a huge difference.
Good point. We're going to come to that later. Scatter terrain.
Yeah.
Yep.
But for me, I think it's got to be like again, bit biased, but because I've just had like my first lot of an army painted up, I've actually noticed the difference. For me, it's actually a bit of both. It's not one or the other for playing. For looking at things, I would rather look at painted models than painted terrain. But for actually playing on tabletop, it has to be a mix of both.
Loving it. Perfect. Rob, what about yourself? Terrain for you, or loving the beautiful painted armies?
To me, is the armies themselves. Like I said, if you go to any tournament itself, you will see people turn up with absolutely stunning armies, and it just gives you an amazing atmosphere, and you can look into them and give you a sense of what they're actually doing with the army, and how the army looks and how it works, and gives you the proper atmosphere. Good terrain, no problem at all. I mean, you can use boxes and all that with a painted terrain, a painted army. Sorry.
Yep.
You still get the same effect, but having a really nice, well-rounded painted army that you're proud of makes the game so much better for enthusiasm, because you can see how much time and effort you've put on into your army itself.
Yeah, agreed.
Possibly it is going to be a question that you'll raise later, is in relation to pre-painted and your own painted terrain itself. So I'm not going to do anything else on that. But because I knew where you're going.
That's fine.
But in relation to one or the other, agree with everybody. It's got to be both. But if I was going to choose one, then I would definitely go down the route of a fully painted army itself.
Cool. So I'm going to kind of just chime in there, because you're right. It's a good. The honest answer to the question is probably a good mix of both. But I'm kind of siding with Rob. I actually prefer the fully painted army. To me, makes me enjoy the tabletop experience more, and that's purely because I find nothing more pleasurable when someone brings an incredibly painted centerpiece model, and has that in the tabletop. We're going to take some, for example, Rob. Obviously, you've got your Silent King. Our Thousand Sons have Magnus. There's some nice armies. Ross, even just your new painted Mortarion. I hate Mortarion with a passion, lore wise, but the model, my word, does it look beautiful. It's a glorious model on the table, and these are the things that stand out to me and actually bring me more enjoyment. I find myself more drawn to looking at the painted models and getting more immersed in that than I do the terrain that's around there. But again, equally, the terrain is very important. Rob, I'll just gonna to bring up an experience that I had with you a wee while ago, which is that tournament you keep taking me to. I won't name any names or anything like that, or anything, because we won't do that. But I do remember some of the terrain in that tournament was good enough, but it wasn't standoutish. But some of the armies, that was a different story. Yes. Some of those armies there, you could take away from some of the decent terrain, but those armies stood out and they looked incredible, and that was the immersive side that I really enjoyed in that tournament. It was purely the armies looked incredible, absolutely incredible. Yes. I remember one in particular that was there was a gentleman brought a Death Guard army, and I just had a whole bunch of fun. Didn't really care what buildings and trees were around. The army just looked great, absolutely great. Yes. Yeah. Well, then move on to the next sort of point, which is if we take terrain, then if we focus on terrain a little bit more. Obviously on the channel we use a combination of terrain that's been bought and painted, and we also have a combination of terrain that's been pre-bought as painted, so pre-painted, and it's obviously there tends to be sometimes a level of quality difference in the pre-painted to the one that you put the time and work in yourself. Sometimes there's not. For example, Rob, your new rune terrain that you've got and you're using on your round robin tournament at the moment, I think looks incredible standard. However, some of the urban mats industrial terrain that we use is good. It does what it does in the tin, but obviously there could be more detail on it. Rob, fire it quickly back to you. When it comes to terrain, do you like a more hands-on approach, building it yourself, painting it to get that extra detail, or are you quite happy with that sort of pre-painted element?
Well, it's a difficult one because pre-painted has come such a long way. Even over the last few years, It's got so much better than what it used to be. There's a couple of companies out there that do the pre-painted stuff, and it's very, very basic painted. And you spend the money on the pre-painted stuff to then should be able to get it straight out of the box and straight on the table and not and go, well, that looks great, straight on, leave it alone, don't need to do anything.
Box to play.
But for quite a few years, there was companies that were saying pre-painted scenery, but when you get it, you're a little bit disappointed and have to do some work on it, which is not the point of a pre-painted scenery. Now, I've spent quite a bit of money at the moment on scenery for us in here and for the channel from 2 or 3 different companies. So I'll name drop a couple of them.
Yep.
So Battlefield in the Box, which is your Gale Force 9, which is the main scenery you've seen on the first round robin. If you haven't, go and watch it. It's a great laugh. We all hate Admech at the moment, but there you go. It's very, very good. It's not basic scenery, but it's got a lot of detail, and you don't need to do anything with it. It's solid resin. It's relatively cheap for what you actually get, and it looks good as well.
It does look good. I was quite pleasantly surprised at the level of detail that came from it. I think that company's been going. They don't just do. I think they've been going for quite a while though, haven't they? So they've got probably a lot of experience in it.
Gale Force 9 have been going for quite a few years because they don't just do 28, 32 mil, but they do Flames of War size.
Exactly.
Well.
It started with Napoleonic stuff.
So they do all sorts, and the range is quite vast. And again, it does look really, really good. I just bought loads of stuff via Goblin Gaming, but it's the GameMap.eu stuff, and it's a resin set of hills and boulders. Now you look at it on the picture and go, yeah, okay, it looks quite good. As soon as you get it, the weight of it, the structure, the physical painting that they've done on it, even though they're not mass produced, but they're rolling them out quite a lot around the world, you do get quite a lot of detail, and it's the detail on the resin, the detail on the painting. You're more than happy to literally take it out of the box, put it on the table, and on a nice mat, away you go. You don't have to do anything with it. Again, they do a lot of other sets like a Fallout set, fantasy as well, which...
Yeah, I actually used to own some of their high elf fantasy stuff before the channel, and that was just, again, to scatter some terrain on. But that was when we weren't exactly using high-end gaming stuff, and I'm going to come to that in a minute. But yeah,
I mean the Flames of War for World War II stuff, that is really, really nice because they do like blast markers, explosions, and buildings. So you can recreate France or Germany in World War II. With the style of buildings, and then keep the style of the buildings, so you know when you play it, and if you're a World War II fanatic is too strong words, is
just a World War II player. You play those sort of games.
Yeah, but enjoy the history of World War II and want to learn more, and you can physically see that is from Battle of the Bulge or Normandy, and you can see that you see the terrain, you see the houses, you can. It's just the atmosphere from that pre-painted stuff is really good. I mean, the painted stuff which I've done live for the channel itself on my side, and the stuff that you can get from GW is really, really good because the amount of customizing you can do with it.
It's modular, isn't it? So you can you can kind of customize it, and you get more detail probably at the cast as well.
Yeah, but it's also you can build it to what you want and how you want it to look. So it's not this is what you get on the box. This is how you're going to have it. That's all you're going to get. Nah, this is the GW got it right. As in, here's what you could make, but let your imagination run riot. Do what you want with it and enjoy it. But you've got the time restraint as well there of painting it yourself. So you could have grey plastic on terrain if you haven't got the skills or the time to paint the scenery. You can just have it on the table.
Yep.
It's great.
Well,
There's no issues with it.
We'll pass it on. We'll pass it on, Rob. Thank you very much. Rob, Ross, to yourself here. What about your opinion on the terrain? Are you a fan of going down the route of pre-painted terrain due to maybe, and point this question in particular, time constraints? Because obviously you're doing a lot of the painting, some of the stuff at the moment, or would you prefer, the investment in time being put into the sort of pre-made, not the pre-made, the terrain that's modular that you build yourself and paint yourself? What would be your steer on that?
I would ultimately say it comes down to the individual and also the quality that you're going to get. So to the individual, some people love working on terrain. I know people who love designing terrain more so than armies. They love to think of a board and they want to make a diorama and they want to make these sort of very, very elaborate styles of terrain that really give a big atmosphere. Rather than having armies run about, they want to make really key pieces of terrain. So it comes down to the individual and what you enjoy more. As for pre-painted versus non-pre-painted, comes down to how the quality of the sculpts and also the paint job that they can provide. If they're both excellent and it's going to save you money, it's going to save you time, pre-painted all the way. If you want to paint it yourself, then go for it. Ultimately, it comes down to quality, money, time. If you can get all three, then sounds perfect to me. But it comes down to your personal enjoyment. Do you want to spend more more time painting your terrain, or do you want to spend on your armies? And I'd probably say most people would prefer to paint their armies because there's more, more personal feeling towards them rather than terrain. But it really comes down to the individual. And that, for me, I prefer painting armies than terrain. But there's some people who do certainly prefer terrain.
Okay, thank you very much. Louise, I've got a different type of question for you here. Did you ever have the luxury of playing a tabletop game without the investment of terrain, as in using eggshell cartons or using iron brew cans as towers? Did that ever happen during your past experiences with tabletop gaming?
I'm going to have to be honest, no. Because as I said, I started my first ever experience of Warhammer was back in old fantasy days, and it was walking into the old Glasgow Hope Street store and getting an intro game of.
They were the best days, though. The best days.
An intro game. And then ended up moving in with tons of staff members and flat sharing. So it was just pretty much the biggest room in the house, which was the living room, and got turned into a room with three big massive gaming tables, one for 40k, one for fantasy, and one for all the other types of games back in the day, like Inquisitor and stuff. So again, very, very spoiled. I didn't have to kind of do makeshift stuff. The only game I've came close to with that is Infinity.
Okay.
And it was little pop-up cardboard stuff, but even then, that's still a bit more advanced than, cans and stuff that you've got kicking about the house.
All right, fair enough. Well, makes sense. I'm gonna go the polar opposite end, and I'm gonna just harken back to the time where I and my old flatmate Duke, who sometimes is on the calls, it was on the podcast. Sorry, we invested in a green felt from a fabric store.
Oh God!
Because we couldn't. Yeah, this is all true. We were like, we're going to go down the route of just generic terrain, so we got ourselves a green. This actually was once we upgraded ourselves from the living room floor when it comes to wargaming on a laminated wooden floor. We played plenty of games on laminated floor, and I think my knee damage can attest to that. But anyway, we then thought, let's buy ourselves. So we got ourselves two painting tables, two pasting tables, sorry to be precise, which always had this horrible gap dip in the middle when you put the two tables together. And we bought ourselves a green felt from a local fabric store in Glasgow and rolled that out every time. And I think we bought some terrain, but we used to use cardboard boxes. Some cardboard boxes, like your 12-pack of cat food, I would try and cut holes in it to make it look like terrain and sellotape platforms so you had some sort of level terrain. But to me, I actually look back on them with very fond memory. They were fun times trying to make yourself a tabletop with basically on a budget of nothing. Just picking out what you could in the house, putting your loo rolls as a tower or a what do you call it? A cylindrical tower of some sort. It was good times. So those days were fun. I imagine there's a lot of players out there that still do that. Get a big green felt, roll it out, and away you go. But
now,
this,
what I was going to say is to make
Yeah.
it even make it go even worse is when I first started properly gaming at this level. A good friend of mine, Adam, who's the son of a friend of my mum's, Glory, who used to work at a school, and basically went to the same school, same year, and everything.
Mhm.
And basically, he was very, very good with using any materials to make buildings. So, paper round money, for instance, is we used to go to hobbycraft style
Yep.
places. So, like it's like your phone card, and we would literally build our own houses, build our own 40k scenery. No boxing, anything like that. We'd actually build it, paint it, and everything. Do use cereal boxes for slates on the roof.
Yeah.
I actually physically go to town on trying to make it as best as it possibly could, and it did work. I mean, lucky enough on old school fantasy, you didn't need that much scenery. So it was only a couple of buildings here and there and a couple of fences, etc.
Fantasy was always less terrain, wasn't it? So you could move your big square units round.
It was great. But again, even with the 40k side of sci-fi, 40k side is in the summer holidays we used to have 5,000-6,000 point games over the summer holidays that lasted 3 to 4 days, and we used to have chipboard tables. So I think it was about 6 2x4 chipboard tables that we used to paint like black on one side, green on the other. And put them over tables, put the scenery on there, and it used to be Orcs versus Space Marines, always. And that was a great laugh because we just make this physical scenery, and even at school, we're able to like use some of the machinery and actually machine some of the scenery itself because we talk to the lecturers. Oh, we do this stuff as a hobby. Can we utilize some materials and make this, that, and the other? And yeah, we did, and it was great fun.
Sometimes just putting your own sort of spin on it and just being creative. I wish I was a more creative individual that I could rustle up from cardboard boxes and stuff lying around the kitchen in the house and make a table out of it. But yeah, I certainly don't have that talent. But no, I just wanted to kind of chime on that, and thank you very much, Rob, for sharing that as well. Well, we're gonna come to a wee bit further, which is obviously we've mentioned a lot there about the terrain, making the tabletop, having an option of prepaid terrain or putting your own time and investment into making your own terrain, and it will come down, as Ross said, each to your own. It's your own sort of preferences, your own budget, and your own investment and your own time. Army wise, I think we've all played games where we've put armies on the floor, on the table, and there's been zero terrain or minimal terrain to go by. Now, this is a very quick discussion point, but I just want to run around the table. Painted armies, or grey armies, or painted and unbased armies. If I was to go on the table just now and play against an army that had either one of the following, unpainted or unbased, I wouldn't enjoy myself. I'd feel less immersed. And I wanted to know your feelings on that, if there's a personal preference. And I guess this comes back to maybe the privilege of running the channel, that we only use based and painted armies. But I remember even as a kid, I did not enjoy playing with grey models. I was always super jealous of other guys in the store who had better talent to paint their armies and base their armies. And I just didn't have the time, effort, or the affordability to do it. Louise, what about yourself?
Because I've only recently started playing, it doesn't bother me whether I'm playing against or with an unpainted army. Obviously now I've played on the channel with a small force painted up and noticed the difference. It feels better.
Okay.
And I'm actually I'm the first bat rep we were recording. I was so excited and so proud. Like I stayed up until like 5 a.m. to make sure I'd finished my painting.
Oh,
Like it was just like, oh my god! Finally, after so many years, I've got a painted force on the table. So that was an accomplishment, I think. Like, but I would never look badly on someone for not having their force painted, because me above all can understand completely how you can be in the hobby for years and years and years and just never finish an army.
and I guess that
Would
comes.
be a bit a hypocrite otherwise.
No, but that also ties into what you were saying. Your first point when I was on the very start of the podcast. Terrain or armies, what makes a tabletop for you? And you were very much a mix of the both. Well, that makes sense then, because you're going to get some element of terrain. If someone brings grey models, you're not too bothered by it. Exactly. Rob, what about yourself? Would you feel less enjoyment playing with a grey army, an unbased army, or do you want to now? Obviously, now you've got the luxury in the channel. Would you always want to aim for playing those painted armies?
I would always want to play against and with a painted army. There's no doubt about it, because you get the final element of the hobby itself. So gaming is gaming, but and that is the key part of this hobby. It is a war game. Therefore, you buy yourself to play a war game with.
Fair enough, yeah.
Painting is another element of war gaming. A lot of people paint more, play less. Some people do the other way around. Some will do 50-50. If I know I'm playing against somebody who I know is a painter or wants to paint an army itself, and they've got some units that they want to try out and see if they like using them. For example, again, going to the tournament scene, if you've got somebody who wants to go to a tournament and they know it's in 3 months' time, for instance, and they've got 1,000 points that's painted up and they know how to use it, and they've got that last 1,000 points, but they've bought a load and they don't know what to take. I'm always up for, if you want to try something out, especially because you pay the money to go to a tournament, of course. Try and do your best and enjoy it. Get it on the tabletop. Get it a few games under your belt with it to try it out and see if you actually mold with it. Keep changing the list, and then when you find a list that you go, yeah, I can use it, as long as you've got enough time, get it painted that way, and then you're ready for the tournament. Get used to using certain units, because like I said, I'm still practicing and getting my head around Necrons. It's an army that I want to push forward for when the tournament scene opens, and try and use them as best of my ability. And I'm still learning, and I think quite a lot of people are, is one of the new rules for Necrons, but two as well, it's a new entity to me on how everything works. So I've got a load of models, as everybody knows, that are still they're built but unpainted.
Still grayscaled. Yep.
Still grayscaled, but I'm trying them out.
That's fair enough.
If I get to a stage where I go, yeah, I like how it works, I can see how it twigs, I will get it painted straight away. No issues. And that will be how I get it done. And I think there's quite a few people like Jamie and that lot itself, Rusty, Plex, and I think a few others that I know. They will do the same. Is they'll have these units. If they really like the look of, they'll go ahead and paint them straight away.
Of course, you're more invested in it because you enjoy playing with it as well.
Yeah, but if you get to a stage whereby you go, okay, I want to try and push this forward with this army, then they would buy the units, build them, try them out. Sadly, you can't try before you buy, but try before you use at a tournament that you've paid a serious amount of money for. There's no issues on it.
Fair enough. Ross, what about yourself? Obviously, you've been going through a painting journey in the last year or so. If you were to bring yourself to the tabletop now, would you want to bring grey models? Would you want to play against grey models, or would you want to make sure everything's sort of fully painted and up to a standard?
So for me, I honestly wouldn't be too bothered. Like, ultimately, it comes down to that's going to be a lame answer. Who I'm playing against. If I'm playing against someone I'm not, we may not gel on, then yeah, that's not going to be a good experience. But if it's like one of my best friends or anything, I don't care if they're painted. I'm going to have a laugh. But I'll say this to see what your thoughts are on this. I would rather play against grey modern models than old painted ones. And what I mean by that is a lot of the Elder range is very, very old, and it irks me. They look old, they're not dynamic, versus some models that come out now that are a lot more interesting looking. And I'd almost prefer to play against an interesting looking model that's not painted versus a model that's really past its prime and it's painted. And the example I'd use in this is Abaddon. I would 100% like to see a non-paint. I'd like to see a painted modern Abaddon, but I wouldn't mind playing against someone who's using the modern Abaddon model but hadn't painted it versus the old one.
So I'll whip that question from Ross kindly around the table in a second. I'm going to quickly answer it just to lead that question. My answer to that, Ross, is no. Because I'm a very nostalgic person, which unfortunately is just maybe one of my downfalls. But I would happily play against an old, using Abaddon as the example. I would happily play against an old Abaddon as long as it was painted compared to a grey new Abaddon. Because always better. Well, history will say that's not the case, but anyway, it's always better. I just think the paint, that comes back to my answer to the overall question. I would prefer painted models over grey models, and that is a privilege I've now afforded myself here on the channel. I will 100% agree, but I just think the painted models adds a whole immersiveness. Regardless, I've also seen some of the old classic models. Let's not kid ourselves. Some of the model casts are pretty bad, right? With what we can now do with modern technology. I'll use one in particular, which is pretty much not a particular model, but a pose. Think about all the old 90s models you had in 40k. Almost every character had two arms going out the sides.
Monopose.
Yes, exactly. I still don't really care. Those models are fine as long as they're painted. I'm very happy with that, because there's some incredible detail that can still be achieved out of those old pewter models and those old plastic casts. But for me, it has to be painted. But I'm going to whip it round for Ross's question. I've answered it as in no, I'd want them to be painted. Louise, what about yourself?
Again, see, there's two sides. Again, because I've just recently started playing, you're right, it's really nice to have painted models. And then the painter in me is like, models must be painted. I feel like a bit of a hypocrite considering the amount I have unpainted. It's nicer looking at them painted than it is unpainted, but I would never think badly of somebody for not having them painted.
Okay. Rob, what about yourself?
I would like to see a fully painted army on there. If it's young Timmy that's starting off and all that lot, he's got a load of great models and he's trying his best. Fair play to him. I'd play to that Hearthstone and I would have a laugh and it wouldn't make any difference. But somebody who's been in the hobby for so long and they just can't be bothered.
Fair enough.
It does put a detriment to it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'm gonna move off this topic very shortly. And Ross, I would say thank you for that segue question. That was kind of you. I like that. But I know that me and you probably will differ on that. I know you're a big fan of the new model range. And I can understand those models are more enjoyable potentially to look at, regardless painted or unpainted. It's just my personal preference is it has to be painted. But to kind of wrap it up very quickly, there's a good combination. The honest answer is to have the perfect tabletop. It is a good combination of the terrain. Louise, you mentioned scattered terrain earlier on. That's something which I was wanting to kind of briefly talk on, but I'm conscious of time. Is obviously scattered terrain is something I think we need to utilise a lot more in the channel. I've seen a lot of channels do it. It adds that more immersive feel, and I guess it's like the backing boards that we use. It adds immersion, and if you can add immersion to a game, you're taken away to another sort of place when you're playing it. And I think we've only ever had honest feedback. We've had guests as well on the channel. I think Rob, Ross, you'll attest to that. When we've got friends that have used the backing boards, they love it, they enjoy it. Scattered terrain's going to add to that. The terrain we use is going to add to that. But it is a perfect combination of finding the two. I think me and Rob are very much on painted armies. Really is probably a predominant factor on the table Ross and Louise, I think terrain to use is a predominant one on the table. Is that fair to say, guys? Have I got that right or have I got that wrong?
No,
Sure.
right on my side.
Okay, perfect. Well, going forward as well, I'd say to all the people who are watching this in the replay or watching just now, there's a wide variety of terrain that Rob's just brought in. Obviously, we ourselves have just got in from other sources abroad. Brexit took a while to get it. But it's going to mean that there's going to be more terrain hitting the tabletop soon as well. So that variety is going to change soon. So we want to keep that going. I'd also say on the comment section for those who are watching this, if there's any particular types of terrain that you've seen and you recommend that you really like to see or enjoy, put it in the comment sections, let us know. It's all fine that we're making industrial terrain, desert terrain and stuff like that, but if there's any themes that you want to see or you enjoy, we want to hear about it, so put it in the comment section below. Right, with the element of time not on our side, I'm going to move on and very quickly just look at the next topic, which is the hobby updates. And this is something I was quite excited to look at today and talk about, because it's a game in particular that I think is now getting a wee forefront push in Games Workshop again, and it's something I'm hoping to start playing again soon. But there's been new Warhammer Underworlds updates on the Warhammer community. Obviously, we got a very closer look at the Dire Chasm set on the 6th of April, where you basically got a closer look at the new sort of vampire. Is it vampire counts or just vampires now? What do you call them, guys?
Soul Blights.
Right.
Soul Blights.
Soul Blights, yeah.
Soul Blights, right. You got to look at their cards, their new inspired cards. Again, the model range we've already seen. The model range, I think, looks absolutely incredible. Really nicely detailed. But you got a wee closer look at their Warhammer Underworlds team. Has anyone had the chance to even have a look at them and see what rules they were given?
No, and to be honest, and this is a detriment to myself, is I haven't actually played any of the Underworlds, so any of the rules will just be like double Dutch to me, to be honest.
I think it's a game that you maybe not had access to. What about Ross? Have you had a look at them at all? The Dire Chasm?
I haven't had a look at them at all. Really, when it comes down to it, it's simply a case of I've got to get my hands on it and I'll have a look. But I haven't really looked at them in particular. But it's been so long since I've played Underworlds. But it is one of my favourite quick format games. You can get a game done in about 20 minutes. I remember when I was playing with Stu quite a lot, we could get through like 6 games in a couple of hours, and it'd be a whole lot of fun with them. And there's only a few models as well, so getting a variety of different forces together is amazing. It's probably one of my most favourite games I've played. The only problem is, I'd say, is the games become a little bit samey towards if you play a lot of them, but it is a very, very quick, easy game to get into that highly. But really, just what I'm saying is, I do want the vampires. I know that they're probably not going to call them vampires. They don't even mention the word orc.
I think they're called Crimson Court is what they're calling them, sorry.
Well, they won't use the word orc properly, so they're not going to use it.
So what I would highly recommend, especially those who like myself, are really keen on Underworlds or keen to get into Underworlds, I would have a look at the 6th of January update. The reason being is it's not just focusing on Crimson Court, showing you the cards as in each unit and their inspired abilities and what damage they do, which, by the way, is a lot of damage. There's a reason why the article is titled, "Here's how the Crimson Court are turning enemies into appetizers." They are going to chew up other teams as they walk across the board. It's crazy what they can do. But it wasn't just an update for the Crimson Court. The update also showed a whole bunch of new neutral cards that are going to get added to the game. Abilities, objectives. They're basically trying to they're putting a whole bunch of new neutral cards in that you can build your decks around to kind of rebalance a little bit with the incoming Crimson Court. Ross, in particular, I know you said you won't really see it till you get your hands on it, but I'd advise you maybe have a wee look at it, because I'd imagine Crimson Court's right up your street. But looking at
now, David,
some of the new neutral cards as well are quite interesting for our current warbands and how we can blend them in. And then that also comes on to, there was another Underworld, so I'll be very quick on this then, because obviously, Rob, you mentioned you not really had a chance to use it, but there's a new starter set coming out for Underworlds, and this is why I was saying it looks like Games Workshop's kind of pushing Underworlds maybe again back into the picture. You've got a new starter set, however, I guess it's kind of harking to the old. It's going to be Stormcasts again versus Chain Rasps. So Louise, if you want more Chain Rasps, there's probably more lying around.
I clearly need more with having 350. Sorry.
Yes. Although these Chain Rasps, I was going to ask you this: what are Chain Rasps? They've kind of got like Skaven-esque faces. They've got like rat-looking long mouths.
Got weird little bizarre ghosty faces. I'm not looking forward to painting, as I said, 350 of those. But, yeah.
So do Chain Rasps have? I thought all the Underworld Chain Rasps were just human skeletons, but apparently, because these skeletons aren't human. I don't know any humans that
David,
long faced.
Can I say something on this one?
Yeah.
This is a very big complaint of other games, mainly World of Warcraft, is that they go, all the undead are human. Is there not other species that are actually undead?
Okay.
So this is really good. They have sometimes, not every faction, but they've got like the Skaven-esque feeling to an undead creature, because of course their soul can be used as a force of the undead. So I really like that idea. They've got humanoid, they've got Skaven. Maybe if they had orc, that'd be good as well. But that variety of creatures really builds the atmosphere of the dead, rather than just going, oh, they're all human dead. You just don't use any of the other ones.
I can only assume they must be Skaven because of the shape of the mouth. But either way, it's good. There's a new starter set coming. It's just a shame that it's still Chain Rasp and still Stormcast. It would be good to see some other factions in there. But yeah, that was on the 7th of April, the day after. They're basically updating that there's a brand new starter set coming. Games Workshop, if you're listening, I've already got an email sent to you if we can get access to it. I'd absolutely love it. Because Stormcast, as you guys will know, I did mention, I've actually bought a Stormcast army. So any Stormcast I can get, fantastic. I'll paint them up. Let's get them going. So let's move off the Underworlds then. There was a couple of other updates on the community. One in particular I wanted to come on to because I'm going to assume straight away that none of you have watched the new Angels of Death trailer.
Yes, I have.
Oh, you have?
I watched it a few minutes just before this.
Oh, you did? Right. Rob, tell me, take it away. What's your thoughts on it?
With all those cultists, it does look quite nice.
Because the reason I wanted to bring this up is we had a wee podcast the other day about movies, trailers, the media side of Games Workshop, and this was quite interesting to see this drop. Crawling with cultists.
Yeah, and I mean they keep on teasing it and teasing us with all the animation that lot. Just get it released for us, please. Here's another 30-second teaser. Save your time. Just get it released so everybody can enjoy it. And save the surprises for them, because it does look good. It really does.
It does look good. Yes, it does. Although I think you had, obviously COVID's impacted this, but I believe this was originally designed for 2020, the Angels of Death, but obviously it's been pushed back, so I don't believe we've got any release dates yet as such as to when it's going to land. I think
hopefully towards the end of the year.
Yeah. Ross, you said you got a wee glimpse of it before you chimed into the podcast. You must be excited. Cultists being chaos. Or sorry, not cultists. It's Genestealer cult, isn't it?
It's Genestealer cult. Yes.
It's Genestealer cult, not chaos cultists. So no, David, I'm not excited on that one. I mean, like, I'm complete agreement with Rob. It's nice to get all these 30 seconds. It's like snippets of here's a flash of this, here's a flash of that. All fine, but we kind of need a substance. We kind of need, probably, and I imagine they're not going to release it until at least 3 to 4 months before it's actually released, mainly because they need to have it in a semi-ordered way, is that they need to have, we need to know a bit more about it. A 2.5-minute one that gives a good bit of sustenance of the story, what's happening, etc. These flashing ones, I'm not too bothered with them. They look fine, but I need to start getting on a wee bit. Otherwise, just don't tell us and have it when it's ready.
Fair enough.
I think I've said this before with other trailers. I'm like, don't do it 2 years before it's started. I prefer to wait 6 months and you can tell me.
Fair enough. All right, and then the last update is something which I'm going to probably take a step back, and I'm probably going to let you three have a wee chat about this, because you had mentioned this in our own private chat, and I won't lie, I can't add too much input to it whatsoever. But I believe there was Adeptus Mechanicus updates. Correct me if I'm wrong, everyone.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah,
There was,
is.
right.
I'm
So
so
those are. So I'm gonna hand it on to Louise first of all, just to give your input on it. Louise, so and the reason I'm saying that is on the actual Battle Report round robin tournament that's currently being played. You are the resident Adeptus Mechanicus player in that tournament.
I know, right?
So I'm not gonna say that I am educated on the updates, because that would be a lie to everyone who's listening to this podcast. I don't play Adeptus Mechanicus. So Louise, would you mind, if possible, just filling us in with a little bit of an update on some of what was announced or some of that was said?
Oh god, I'm going to need to rely on other people for numbers because I'm still a noob.
Or
the
would you
main thing
like-
I'm excited about
Okay.
that makes me squee inside is the change to phosphor, purely because of my Dakabots, my Castellan robots.
Yes.
Right.
So at the moment they are 6 shots each because it's 3 shots per phosphor.
Nope.
No, completely
No.
wrong. Never
No,
mind.
no.
Over to Rob.
3
So-
shots per phosphor.
Yeah. So at the moment, the release has been on the June crawler and the June crawler only. Sorry, there's been release on the flyer as well for the phosphor.
Sorry,
So-
Louise. My apologies.
Yeah.
Take it away, Rob. Take it away.
Yeah. Sorry. So basically, what it is on the June crawler, you've got a heavy phosphor pair of heavy phosphor cannons, and they were, as Ross said, 3 shots each. Strength 7, -2, 1 damage. Now they've gone up to 4 shots each, strength 6, -2, 2 damage, which is big.
Yeah.
On the main neutron laser, that's gone up to strength 12, flat 3 damage, -4, I think it is, and D6 shots, which is still nice. The Icarus Ray hasn't changed very much at all either, and the base stats for the June quarter stayed the same.
Okay.
The dogs have changed quite considerably.
Yeah.
And
Which makes me really happy considering how many I run and the fact that I've got 6 more to build up. So the Cerberus Raiders and the Sulphur Hounds, the Sulphur Doggos, they've changed from toughness 3 wounds each to toughness 4 2 wounds each. So
That
they're
sounds
buffing on
fair,
wounds,
to be
but their
honest.
Toughness is increased, which is quite nice.
Yep.
but also the Flamers are now 12-inch, not 8.
Yeah. Some people are classing that as a bit of a nerf, but not a huge one. I personally don't see it that way. I'm happy with the increased toughness and dropping the wounds, but hey ho.
Okay. Fair enough. Ross,
And
have
you
you
also get +1 attack as well.
got any input to these updates as well?
AdMech is an interesting force where many of their sort of things that work for them is not just stat-wise, which we're only seeing at the moment, is really stats and what weapon strengths are, is their abilities. What makes the Dakabots work so well is their abilities. Now, at the moment, they are 4 up to hit, but they can get rerolls from Belsari's Call and such. But that might change with the core keywords. Dreadnoughts at the moment get the core keywords, so there's every possibility they may be able to keep it. Dune Crawlers will not. So maybe they'll go down the route of Demon Engines, where they may not get the reroll ones, or even any rerolls at all, but they may go up to 3+ to hit. I think a lot of what's going to make AdMech is the rules, and the one that's important is the Datasmith. Is completely redundant at the moment. That's going to make Dakabots especially. But really, we've seen stats, we haven't seen the abilities, and the abilities are going to be what's important.
Are Doom Crawlers not 3+ already, or am I just completely lying?
Yes,
They
they
are
are.
3+,
They
it's the
are.
Dakabots that are 4+.
Dakabots
with
are 4+, right?
Yeah, but with what Louise is is chirping about is if the same rules for the heavy phosphor on the June crawler goes on to the Dakabots, then I don't think they'll go to double shot, because if it'll go from 18 shots if you double shot to 12 shots, but those 12 shots will be
Okay.
2 wounds each.
Yeah.
Sorry, 2 damage each.
Mm-hmm.
So it's.
I'm staying hopeful that they're changing heavy phosphor to this on everything,
I
and I get to keep my reroll ones, and I get to keep my double shots.
But the rules on the heavy phosphor on the flyer is still 1 damage.
Mm.
So you've got sort of on Dune Crawler 2 damage for phosphor, and then on the flyer is 1 damage. So it's a bit inconsistent at the moment.
The Dune Crawler is a different weapon to what's on the Dakabot and the ship. The ship and the Dakabot are the same. So if it's 1 damage, I'm going to say it's probably going to follow the ship, not the Dune Crawler.
Right, okay.
More than likely.
But I mean, when it comes down to these, AdMech have so many intrinsic rules to them. Think of Electro Priests. What if their rules changed? Because there's no chance they're going to keep 3-up invul. That's not going to happen.
No, that has to change.
Because they don't like 3-up invuls anymore. As much you're hoping for reroll 1s for your Dakabots, Louise, is not going to happen. Maybe the Data Smith might give them a better bonus, but there's next to no... There's a chance they could keep the reroll 1s, but I think AdMech as a whole, they're doing pretty good in terms of the game at the moment, but they're one of the oldest codexes, bar, I think, Chaos, Space Marines, and Grey Knights.
No, they are older. They are older than that.
Were they not, were they not one of the first ones to come out?
Chaos, Space Marines, and Grey Knights were before AdMech. Yep, definitely. They did. I'll tell you the order if you want, but I won't.
No.
No, it's okay, Ross. We're gonna nope.
But AdMech was the first non-marine one that came out.
Yeah.
But there is so many intrinsic rules to it that's really going to make a difference. I can already tell one of the best stratagems is going to go for them because the Necrons changed. I think AdMech's going to be a very interesting book because it's going to be, other than Necrons, I think the first non-marine book. And that's going to be and one of the oldest books. It's going to be very interesting. I'm very excited to see how the rules change.
So we're probably in the next few podcasts that are coming up. We're gonna, I think, from the people that are on the podcast today, and the way it sounds, we need to kind of stay abreast of AdMech updates as they come in. Then, because there's probably going to be a lot coming, isn't there?
Yeah, well, I was going to say, David, you've got 3 AdMech players here.
I would say as well, see Canticles of the Messiah, I think they're not particularly great rules. I think that really should have been beta rules because we all aim for the -1 to hit, and I suppose the reroll 1s to shoot is going to
calling it just now. Calling it just now here in the podcast, so clip it if you want. It's gonna get a very similar, if not the same. It's gonna get command protocoled.
It's gonna get command protocol.
Right, actually.
Well, it could be. I think, it could be. It really needs to change because no one really cares for the +1 strength. It's very, very situational. The reroll 1s in combat is again situational. It was good for me with Sidonia Dragoons. The morale was useless.
Engine War. That's
the new Engine War one. I replaced the second Canticle with the Engine War one.
Yeah, definitely. So I 100% think that AdMech, because it is quite old, is going to see a huge change of stuff, and it'll be very, very interesting. We've seen some stats, but I think it's the rules that are going to be killer.
Okay. Well, as I said, I think we'll actually keep abreast of it because AdMech's quite a predominant army on the channel. Let's not kid ourselves. We've got a large variety of players that play AdMech and the AdMech army.
And in different ways as well.
Yep, totally in different ways. I just wish all of you would stop using Dakabots, but I guess I can't get my Christmas wish, so it's not going to happen. But yeah, no, that's what.
Got to choose Ultramarines or Dakabots. You can't have the absence of both.
Well, it's obviously Ultramarines. There's no question.
Well, there you go then. Dakabots says.
Yeah, I'm aware. Do you ever remember, Ross, when we started the channel, how relieved I was the day I first killed one of the Castellan robots?
Yeah, I remember. In 7th edition, they were a pain to kill.
I never killed a single robot in 7th edition, and it wasn't even until probably mid-8th edition that I killed one, and I remember being so satisfied I finally killed a robot.
It's because they were monstrous creatures, and you could do multiple damage then, so they were just really tough battlefield units. With loads of wins. Yeah,
they're a problem. But yeah, we're going to things bring to a close because we won't talk about AdMech all day because I can see this turning into a podcast on its own, where I'll probably just host it and let you guys just talk for an hour. But that's fair enough.
No, you don't have to do extra time with Ross involved on there.
I mean, David, I'm going to probably do a review and it's going to last another hour and a half talking everything.
Great.
At least a week.
Great. So that's one of my evenings completely gone. Great. Thanks, Ross. No, kidding on. Right. So yeah, I want to wrap it up, guys. Obviously, something light. We always want to try and end the podcast and something lighter. But just to remind everyone again, who's listening or watching, if you're watching the replay just now, comment section down below if you want to ask us anything about the previous topics today. We've talked about the terrain on the table. We've talked about painted armies on the table. Let us know what to you makes a great tabletop. Some of the Warhammer updates, Angels of Death with their new cultist trailer. Let us know what your thoughts on that were. Obviously for me, a lot of the focus was on Underworlds. I really want to know what people are thinking about Underworlds because I'm so keen to get back into that game. Admech, just let everyone else know in the podcast what you thought about Admech because I have no input, so I will not be responding to a single one of those questions. Not going to happen. But so, week so far, guys, end on something lighter. And I always know when I ask these questions, sometimes people aren't doing much because they have busy lives. But this week, just want to change it up. I've been, obviously, I joined a while ago the luxury crew of air fryers. Air fryers, is that it? Yeah. So I joined that luxury elite of air fryers. So I've been spending my time learning new air fryer recipes, thoroughly enjoying it. So cooking's my passion for the week. Ross, I think you've been doing a ton of painting, but is there anything else outside the hobby you've been keeping up to date with or doing?
Well, the main thing is, now the restrictions are a bit lifted, I've been working on physical fitness and physiotherapy.
Loving it.
That's basically me for the next couple of months, is I'm really working on my fitness. I was not been in good shape for a couple of years because of injuries and such, and now I'm really pushing it, and probably this is the first week I'm beginning to see me get back into a form. I used to run like 10Ks like there was no problem, and I did one recently and it was horrifying. So I'm just trying to get back into fitness. It's going to be a while, but I feel it's going to help me for the future. So anytime you ask me this, it's going to be, I've just been like either at boot camp or running.
That's fine. If that's the answer, that's the answer. But it's nice to know you're spending your lockdown productively. So excellent.
Yep.
Louise, Rob, obviously this question is to the both of you because, well, you come as a pairing. Anything outside of the hobby that you've been keeping yourselves up to date with? I actually seen a wee update from you, Louise. You were playing a lot of your what was it, Nintendo? What was the game you were playing recently?
Oh, the Switch Monster Hunter Rise.
That was it, Monster Hunter.
Rise.
Yes. Yeah.
Not long out on the Switch, and I decided to go full pelt and got the collector's edition. Not had the chance to play in the last couple of days.
Right. Okay.
But it came with like one of the amiibos and stuff as well.
What's an amiibo? Sorry, what?
Oh my god, an amiibo.
Yeah, amiibos. So amiibos, for those younglings that don't understand, Dave, is something from ages ago in Nintendo. That it's basically like a little decorative statue thing, like kind of like the pop vinyls, but not bobble-headed.
Oh my word!
And this one's one of the monsters in the game, but you actually scan it on your controller or on the console, and it gives you bonuses in game. You can use it every day in game to give you free stuff.
Rob, are you on board with this?
Nope, don't play it.
Okay, so you're like me then. You don't play these games.
David, you might know. You probably don't know this. It's basically Nintendo tried to do Skylanders, then the whole merchandise thing on games died a death. But,
I could see that. Just by the whole thing you described to me, guys, I can see that dying of death. But hey, that's excellent.
Disney did the same thing as well.
Right.
None of it worked.
What about
amiibos with Nintendo were huge, though. They're really successful.
What about yourself, Rob? Have you managed to get some downtime or get away from the hobby in any way?
It's just been work. It's March for me. It is an absolutely horrific month for telecoms itself. It's at the moment. I think the last count was 44 days working straight. So it's been painful. I've just been putting plans together for more scenery for ourselves on the channel.
Excellent.
But also setting up for a new army because I'm nearly finished painting the crons, so they'll be ready to rock and roll. Then got a few little bits left.
So more preparations for you then, Rob. Excited?
Yep, but I've got the new army is written. It's priced up. I need some more overtime if I ever get it.
Is this the joint army? Yeah.
Yes.
I don't even know what's in it, and it's a joint army, and I'm finding out it's priced and written.
Don't spoil it in the podcast, guys. Save it for a reveal. Save it for a reveal.
Wait, I don't know.
I don't know either, Ross, which is why I'm asking them to not make it exclusive.
Okay.
No, but give it about 2 months or so.
That's
2 to 3
fine.
months, yeah, because I'll be painting it. Jesus Christ, woman, calm down.
Right, okay.
But yeah, 2 to 3 months, there'll be another interesting list.
That's fine, yep.
Interesting army. So hopefully we'll get all of us together and get Stuart involved, because I still haven't played against Stuart yet, and he's been hanging around like a bad smell for about 18 months now.
Well,
there's been a little thing in the way for the past year.
There's been just a really teeny tiny pandemic in the way.
Yeah, he only learned how to play 40k at the end of 2019, and then 2020 happens.
So guys,
So it's Stuart's fault.
as your host, I'm going to step in because of time. We don't ever want to run over time, but first of all, thank you for giving your updates. And Rob, I'm now looking forward to an exclusive in the coming months. But please do not spoil it. I don't want to know. Let us know when you've got it all planned. Louise, I'm now going to go away and look up Amiibos, Amabes, whatever it was that you mentioned.
Amiibos.
I'm not a Nintendo guy. I never have been, so I'm interested to know what this is. But yeah, and Ross, keep up the fitness, buddy. I certainly won't be cooking you any of my meals in because they are not healthy. So
Good lad.
I'll leave it at that. But guys, yep, again, thanks for joining us. And again, thank you to all my guests today and for those who have joined us on this podcast. So thanks for obviously for Louise joining. Thank you, or Pix, I should say. Thank you to Rob and thank you to Ross. Would you like to say your goodbyes, everybody?
Goodbye. See you later. Take care of yourself.
Bye.
Excellent, and we'll hope to see you in one of our Tabletop Assault battle reports, guys.